Is cold email dead? Are your emails going to go to spam forever? Is AI taking over? These are the type of questions that I get asked a lot in my comments and also in direct messages. Now, as someone who sent their first cold email in 2014, cold email has gotten harder and it has changed a lot. However, I don't quite think it's dead. Rather, that there's a lot of new opportunities coming up in cold email. Now, I want to address these questions from a technical perspective, taking my decade of history and my team's history, as well as all the data we get from managing campaigns across dozens of clients. First video, I'm going to hand it over to my business partner, Felipe, who's our COO in the weeds, handling all of our deliverability to answer these questions for you. Felipe, I'm going to hand it over right now.
Thanks for the introduction. As always, in today's video, we're going to talk about the future of cold email. Now, before we even start talking about it, I want to just clarify why should we talk about it in the first place. And without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The reason why I think it would be relevant for us to talk about the future of cold email and deliverability overall right now is because we had a lot of changes recently when it comes to cold email. So for instance, there was the introduction of AI features analyzing NLP, semantics, and sentiment of emails to figure out whether or not the emails that you're sending out are spammy or not. Now, what is spammy? Let me just clarify spam first before we continue this conversation. Spam, the way it's defined by Google and Microsoft, is two things that have to be true at once. It has to be a bulk sending email and it has to be unsolicited. Those two things trigger what is called a spam email. Now, you could argue that if that is the definition of spam, you'll always be a spammer if you're doing cold outbound campaigns. But you can actually, and this is what we oftentimes do, trick the filters and trick the systems so it doesn't seem like you're sending spam. So you get a lot of email accounts, for example, sending very low volume each. These accounts are all disconnected from one another, and all of a sudden it doesn't seem like you're sending bulk emails anymore. Or another example would be you personalize your copy enough so it seems like you may have known this person before, right? So there are tricks and things you can apply in order to get around the definition of spam. But now a lot of email service providers like Google and Microsoft have been figuring out ways to understand what you've been doing and try to identify you a lot quicker. So they've introduced AI to analyze what's the NLP behind the sentences, what are the semantics, and what kind of overall sentiment does the email have. And so that is a new feature that has been released, and it has affected cold email deliverability overall across the board, no matter the industry you're in, unless you're sending personalized messages at a very low scale. Now, let's consider in this specific scenario, we're talking about bulk sending, and we're sending a lot of volume every single day. So that was one of the recent changes in deliverability. The next one was introduction of Blackboxes. So I want to introduce you to a principle. Imagine you were to run Google and Microsoft, and you are an email service provider. Again, they don't control email marketing overall. They don't control email at all. They are just an email service provider, right? They can get punished, and they do get punished by Blacklist that do tell them, hey, if you allow too many spammers in your platform, you're sending IPs, you get blacklisted, and you will no longer have very good deliverability. Although they are sending to each other, right? Like it's Google sending to Google, for example, they still get affected by blacklists. Now they do really well with that, and part of the scheme they have to perform in order to make their IPs perform again is ban a bunch of cold emailers. Now, they went a step further because they realized that if they go ahead and they ban you as a cold emailer, you pretty much will go ahead, figure out a way to create a new account and continue to spam. So they created a new system that's even better for them, not for you, which is they attribute you a bad sending IP whenever they think that you are a spammer. And what happens is you don't know you're in that bad sending IP, you're not blacklisted. And the bigger problem is sometimes when you are in that bad sending IP, you keep on paying for your accounts without knowing they're not delivering. And sometimes they're not even delivering to spam. They're not getting delivered at all. And this is the principle that's on the screen right now, a black box. You could be sent into just limbo, right? And that is a thing that has been happening a lot. We tested with a lot of accounts, and every once in a while, whenever the accounts start getting flagged, they start sending to limbo. Emails don't even go out, right? And we don't receive a feedback loop saying, hey, your email didn't go out, your email bounced, or anything of that nature. It just doesn't go out, right? And so that is a new thing that it has been affecting deliverability quite a lot, actually. Now, the next thing, if you've been doing cold email for a while, you already know this. It does take more volume nowadays to get or more effort to get the same amount of booked meetings, right? So back in 2014, or if you were even to go back like a few years back, 4 years back, we were talking about metrics like booked appointment rates having to be higher than 2%. Nowadays, you're gonna have a booked appointment rate of 0.5 and even be happy, right? So like numbers have been going down and down and down, and it requires more and more volume or more and more effort in terms of personalization, offer improvement, relevancy, point finding, and all of those things. But overall, it's getting harder to deliver in the primary inbox. It's getting harder to get people to hop on meetings because they've been blasted with cold emails. And so now you really have to stand out, right? One analogy I like to give our clients is, compared to Facebook ads, it was so cheap to run Facebook ads in 2014. I had a company I was running at the time, and we had 52x ROAS, return on ad spend, in some campaigns, and we thought that was bad. We literally thought that was bad. Nowadays, if you're breaking even in a lot of ad sets, you're already happy. And this is what's happening to cold email. Like very back in the day, you could send whatever email out, people would reply, they would be engaging with you, they would be hopping on calls, they would be curious. But as more and more people started coming into this industry and sending more emails, it's gotten saturated and results tend to go down, right? So you tend to see this trend of less and less results as you go. And as people get away from cold email now again, it will probably trend up once again. But until then, I still want to talk to you about the future of cold email. Next thing that explains why we're talking about in the first place is a lot of companies are opting out of lead databases and they're opting into outreach blacklists. So let me explain this one. Let's say you're scraping your data from ZoomInfo. If you're a company, not talk about your company now, like you're a company that's receiving a lot of outbound, you can now literally reach out to ZoomInfo and say, hey, I wish to no longer be listed in your database. You have to remove me from it. And ZoomInfo has to remove them from it, right? Else they could get in legal trouble. So this is something that has been happening. Companies are opting out of legal scraping. And the problem with that is that your databases will not give you data for the companies you yourself want to reach out to. But not only that, they are now opting into blacklists. So they're saying, hey, if external organizations are reaching out to this specific domain right here, I want them to be blacklisted. And that is a new thing. It used to be called spam traps, but now it's taken to a next level, which is like a blacklist, and companies are opting out of outreach. So that is a new beast. It feels like in cold email, like you're just always fighting a hydra. You slice one head out and two heads pop up, and it's just always a thing. That is a new thing. That is something that you will have to be mindful of. The problem with that is if a company has opted out of legal outreach and legal scraping, and you are reaching out to them, and your company is actually big, they could legally threaten you, right? So there's a lot of details and there's a lot of minutia to this statement I just shared with you. But do bear in mind with me, here, what we're talking about is things that are going to get on the way of cold email. There's always ways around all of those legal things that we're talking about, but overall, it's just getting harder to scrape companies. That is the main point I'm trying to make with this statement. Let's continue. Another thing is fine-tuned firewalls to protect against scam and fraud. So a lot of fraudsters and scammers have been learning our methods in cold email. They've been learning how to do snowshoeing. They've been learning how to trick AI filters. They've been learning all of those tricks that we apply in order to send cold email in bulk. And they've been applying that to fraud companies. So they've been creating domains that were similar to the primary domain of a company to reach out to potential customers of theirs to literally win the deal, right? Pretend to be a company they're not in order to win deals, right? That was happening a lot. Another thing is creating similar domains to the primary domain of a company and reaching out to every employee in order to get some leakage, right? So they were trying to get leaked information so they could sell it or they could blackmail the companies. And that became a big thing. So now firewalls are much more fine-tuned to figure out whether or not you're a legit sender. So these are all of the reasons why we should be talking about the future of cold email in the first place. Now let's jump straight into it. Where are we heading? What is going to be next in cold email, in my opinion, and from what we are seeing with our data? These are the things that I've compiled. There is more to this, but these are the principles. Number one, and this is something that has affected SEO quite drastically this year, is required company and individual authority and credibility. So what Google and Microsoft are realizing, I'm talking them in terms of email service providers because they're the bigger ones and they're the easiest ones for you to relate to. So let's talk in that sense. Google and Microsoft, they're understanding that a lot of these accounts are just snowshoeing primary accounts, meaning a lot of accounts impersonating my name or impersonating Michael's names. And those are the accounts that are sending cold email. So how do you combat that? You require for an account to have a specific authority and credibility as that person. So in SEO, what happened is a lot of blogs that were posting AI generated content got shut down because there was no real author behind those accounts, right? Behind those blog posts. And so they are now requiring that you have some sort of backlink to yourself, right? So you are someone, you are Googleable, you are out there, you are a real person. And this is the next thing, in my opinion, that email is going to look for. If you have a lot of accounts with the same persona and they don't exist at all on the internet and they've been getting reported as spam, that is the most important piece. Those accounts, in my opinion, will start getting shut down or will start getting attributed bad sending IPs and not deliver primary inbox, right? So the user keeps on paying, but they still don't deliver to the primary inbox. So that is one of those things. The next one is required positive real feedback loops. A lot of cold emailers nowadays do what's called a warm-up, where they have an automation tool like Instantly or Smartlead send emails back and forth with other users in the platform to create some sort of credibility with email service providers. Now, warm-up, don't get me wrong, still works really well, and it does increase the longevity of accounts from all of our testing, but I feel like in the future, it's going to matter less and less. It's still gonna play some role into getting credibility on your account, but I feel like it's gonna be required much more that you will have engagement from real aged domains, real aged accounts, and real conversations, which are three things that don't really happen in a warm-up pool. You could say sometimes, yeah, you do have like some aged domains in there from cold emailers that have been doing this for a while, but the risk is a lot of those tend to be actually blacklisted and they tend to have problems. They've just been running on warm-up for forever, from our experience. Not always the case, but sometimes. Now, I feel like in the future, what's going to happen is Google, Microsoft will require for your account to have a good sending reputation, for it to have talked or at least had some engagement with age domains, age accounts, and real conversations, right? If that is the goal of that account, right? If that account reaches out to enterprise level companies, it has to have talked to enterprise level companies before or had some sort of positive feedback loop with those type of accounts. So that is going to be the next thing. Next one is required relevancy. So when you're sending emails, it has to sound like it's relevant. You can't just go ahead and say, hey, first name, here's my offer. Let me know if you want to hop on a call sometime today or tomorrow. That I feel like will no longer work because it's just too spammy, too straightforward, and gives away the fact that it is a cold email. Now, the way that you can get around that is by adding relevancy. Hey, first name, I came across your LinkedIn and also don't notice X, Y, and Z. And because of that, this is why I'm reaching out. And this is why I think it's specifically relevant for you. Let me know if it makes sense for us to talk further. Those type of emails, although they could be flagged as spammy, they will still go through, in my opinion, because they have the added relevancy that might make the prospect want to read that email and want to engage with you. And those I feel like will still keep on going through. If you want more details on this specific bullet point, there's a video we recorded on this channel on personalized lines on Clay. And that will give you a lot of depth on this topic, on how you can understand how relevancy can be added, what are the ways that you can add relevancy nowadays. Let's continue. Require diversification and protection. So with all of these filters coming into place and all of these things that could blacklist you or could affect your deliverability, it will be more and more important that you're diversified, that you have all of your domains in multiple platforms, right? So you divide all of your domains in multiple platforms. You don't only rely on GoDaddy or only on Squarespace or only on Portbun. Use all of the platforms at once. So not a single platform can just completely wreck your outbound. The same would go for email accounts. You have them on Microsoft, G Suite, Rackspace, and other email service providers. So just so you're always protected from a potential hit or a deliverability hit in a specific platform. And by protection, I mean the next thing that's going to happen is a lot of these accounts will be requiring identification. And so like your protection is creating multiple personas that you can add to these accounts. That is something I'm not going to cover much in depth in this video, but it is very important. And if you're curious about that, you can leave a comment down below and I can tell you more about how to diversify identities in cold email and get accounts that are completely disconnected from one another so they can never truly shut down your entire system because they cannot know it's you behind all of these accounts. This goes into a lot of depth. There's a lot to it, but let me know in the comments if you want to know more about it. Next one is data scraping differences. So I already told you about legal blacklists. That's something that already exists in SMS marketing. There are companies that have opted out of receiving SMS marketing. And if you contact them, they have the legal right to sue you, right? And I feel like that is going to come into email as well. The next one would be reduced amount of name permutations in email addresses. So for example, my email is felipe@difimeetings.com. But if I'm receiving a lot of outbound that I don't want to receive, not the case, you can send me your cold email. I'll be happy to read it. I know what you've been sending in case it's good. I can replicate it. Now you're not going to send me a cold email? I know. Anyways, so a lot of name permutations in emails are going to go away because if I don't want to receive outbound anymore, I might as well just move into a random email address. Perhaps, I don't know, camera@diafymeetings.com, anything random, right? That no one would contact me at, right? And I'll just keep that email for internal communication with my team, for me sending emails to prospect. Of course, I wouldn't have used camera in the name, but it would be some variation of that. Perhaps it would be FF, which is my two first initials, right, on my email. So something that wouldn't be a name permutation, which is, by the way, one of the ways that a lot of the databases gather emails. They check all of the name permutations and they check if the emails are valid or not. And that's one of the ways they're figuring out what the emails goes to who in what company, right? But that is going to get lessened. The next thing is going to be tons of spam trap infiltrated in big databases. So databases like Apollo, ZoomInfo, all of the big names out there, in my opinion, will get infiltrated with spam traps. If you were a Blacklist owner and you wanted to make sure you're catching cold emailers doing bad emailing practices or pursuing bad email practices, you could just infiltrate your own emails into those platforms. You could upload your own contacts in there and you could turn them into spam traps. Everyone that's contacting those are getting checked and they're getting reported to a blacklist such as SpamCop, for example. You could create systems like that, and I feel like that's going to happen more and more. There's already a lot of this happening, and if you're not checking for spam traps, well, your campaigns are probably not performing as well as they could. So definitely go ahead and check that. If you're curious about it, we record a video on spam traps and email validation in this channel as well, link down below. But anyways, I feel like it's going to be a lot more. It's going to be much more predominant. You're going to have much better spam traps all around, all across the board, right, to catch spammers like us doing what we do. So the scraping methods are going to get different as we progress here. Now, what should you do based on all of this, based on all of the things we talked about so far? In my opinion, you should diversify your cold email infrastructure. So have multiple IPs creating accounts, have multiple domains in multiple domain providers, have multiple email accounts in multiple email service providers, multiple personas, not only your persona, have other personas that look real, and you can pretty much create a way to make them look real. If you're curious about that, let me know in the comments. I can tell you more about it. It's a big thing we do nowadays, and it's one of the reasons why we barely have any deliverability issues at the moment. But anyways, that would be a topic for another video if you're curious about that. Now, next thing would be improve your strategy and offers. So introduce relevant points, right? Relevancy points. If you want to learn more about that, check out the Clay video that we link down below. It will tell you all about relevancy points, how you can get them, how you can leverage AI to get them for you, and so forth. Next one would be improve your offer and perceived upfront value. One thing I'll be very honest with you is we do coach a lot of people, and we have a lot of people come to us and ask us about the $1 million offer from Alex Hormozi, where they create a freebie and they put that in their email and they're sending a PDF away. And it all sounds great. The only problem is that it's not perceived as upfront value. So they took Alex Hormozi's advice in half, right? They took half of the advice and that's what they implemented, right? I would give them a freebie, but it's just not perceived as valuable, right? So you got to create something that is actually perceived as valuable, right? Perhaps it is part of your service that's a free trial, right? If your service is something that the person you're reaching out to actually wants. So yeah, improving your perceived upfront value. Next one, eliminate unqualified prospects from your list. This is a massive thing. If you're not cleaning your list properly, and what I mean by cleaning is when you export them from Apollo, when you export them from ZoomInfo, or when you download a database, or you scrape a directory, if you don't have any mechanisms to filter through those companies and make sure they're relevant to receive your offer, what happens is all of those bad emails are more likely to report you as a spammer because the email is irrelevant to them, and that is a negative feedback loop that hurts all of your accounts and skews your data. Because you have so much bad data that you're sending out, how can you even look at your metrics? They're not relevant. It doesn't really mean that your qualified market is not replying to you. It's just that you have a bunch of unqualified companies in there that wouldn't buy from you in the first place. So make sure you're eliminating all of the unqualified prospects from your lead list before you're launching your cold email campaigns. You can leverage AI to do this. If you want to know how, also drop a comment down below. I can definitely tell you more about it. Next one, spam proof your emails and apply spin syntax. We have a video that covers this in a lot of depth. Link is down below as well. But it is pretty much remove spam sentences, make your emails not sound completely spammy, and apply spin syntax to make every email you send out look unique automatically and at scale. If you want to know more about that, check the link down below. Next one is warm up real accounts and with real copy. I already talked about this before, but if you want to have your accounts have a good reputation, they should be engaging with aged domains, aged email accounts, and have real conversations with real copy you'd actually be sending to your prospects. This is something we'll have an update coming up in the upcoming weeks. So get ready for that. We have a really interesting feature we're going to tell you about coming up soon. But anyways, this is going to be even more important as we go. Next one, improve your lead generation processes. So cross-check the data you get from big providers. We talked about this. Leverage real-time scrapers. What is a real-time scraper? Is a tool such as FindML that will not store data from years ago just to say they have a lot of data already stored in their database. Instead, what FindML does is they scrape it in real time. If you put in a request, they go in and they try to find the email for you. So I strongly recommend that you check out FindML if you want to know how to use it. We also recorded a video already on it. It's on this channel, link down below. And last one, analyze your campaign data. You got to be able to identify that things are going sideways, that you're taking an L in your cold email campaigns. How do you do that? You can check for authentication problems on your DMARC records. DMARC will pretty much report back whether or not SPF and DKIM are authenticating. When would they not authenticate if you have those records installed? Pretty much when you're going to spam or when your email is not getting delivered whatsoever, because it doesn't get checked and an email was sent out. And so there are tools such as Glock apps that will give you free reports up to 10,000 DMARC records, and they will tell you when you're not authenticating your emails that are going out. Being very honest, whenever we check that type of data, we oftentimes find that those accounts that are not authenticating SPF and DKIM, they're usually also bouncing high, or they're usually also not getting a high reply rate. And so it usually indicates that there is an issue with those accounts. So what we do is we backtrack. What has been done with this account? How have we gotten to the point where it's not working? And so from there, we reverse engineer the process of how not to let that happen again, right? And we warm up the account and continue the campaigns from there. Next one, analyze your campaign data for lack of responses from H domains. If all of the big accounts are reaching out to you are not replying, either it's a problem with your strategy or it's a problem with your reputation as a sender. And so you gotta address both. And last one, if you're having a high bounce rate, specifically bounce rates related to 550 high probability of spam, you should be checking your reputation as a sender. You should be addressing why that has happened. If you're curious to learn more about all of the things we talked about today, there is two ways you could go about it. One, you could comment down below, or two, if you're ready to take this seriously, you could also check out the link that we have on growb2b.io. That's linked down below. That's our course where we teach all of our clients on how to execute all of this and how to stay ahead of the curve and get deliverability to actually work for you. Now, that's all that I have for you in this video. I hope you got a lot of value. Thanks for having me, and I'll see you in the next one.
Shout out to Felipe for handing over all those insights. I hope those do help you guys a lot. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. We do check and answer almost all of those. And if you do want more one-on-one help, check out growb2b. There's a link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.